What is up, guys? Welcome to my first Arrowverse review of 2018, being Supergirl Season 3, Episode 10, titled Legion of Superheroes. So, let's get into the review. This episode is obviously titled Legion of Superheroes, and there is a lot to go on with the Legion of Superheroes in this episode. I feel like this episode could have been called something else, because it didn't really focus on the Legion of Superheroes a crazy amount. It was more focused on Kara and her coma and Rain. But the Legion of Superheroes were definitely prevalent in this episode, just not as prevalent, not prevalent enough to warrant the episode being named after them. I feel like they could have saved this name for a future episode more focused around the Legion. That's not a complaint or anything, it's just me pointing that out. So Brainiac 5 debuted in this episode, and when he was revealed in the trailer for this episode, or in one of the trailers for this episode, I was disappointed. Because, first of all, he looked really weird, and second of all, he was blue instead of green. He has been blue before, like in the Justice League animated TV show, in Justice League Unlimited, he was bluish-greenish. He wasn't fully blue, he was green, but in this, he is fully blue with patches of purple on his cheeks and around his face, which looks pretty weird. It looked pretty weird in the trailer, but I gotta say, seeing him walk around and talk fully in this episode, it still looks weird, but not as weird, nowhere near as weird. I got past the blue and past the weird makeup and past the wig because he's actually a pretty great character. He acts just like, or basically like Ezra Miller acted in Justice League, which fits for Brainiac 5, doesn't fit at all for Barry Allen, but definitely fits for Brainiac 5. The way when he says something, he says it really quick, and he says it with this know-it-all type thing, and then he rolls his eyes. He looks up, just like how Ezra Miller did in Justice League, which again did not work for him, but it works for the character like Brainiac 5. So I think that they actually did the character of Brainiac 5 pretty well. It's just that his design, he's blue, his wig looks weird, and it's white, it's not blonde. His design isn't great, but his character actually works really well. And Brainiac actually connected with Kara in this episode. I feel like they have chemistry and they can get together because in the comics and also in the Justice League TV show, Supergirl and Brainiac have been together before and for a while. Like in Justice League TV show, in Justice League Unlimited, I don't know why I keep on saying that. Justice League Unlimited, Supergirl left the show to go join the Legion because she fell in love with Brainiac 5, which they might bring onto the show. I doubt she's going to join the Legion. I mean, she might join the Legion as like an honorary member and go to the future for a little bit, but she's not going to the future permanently. But I still think that they might have a little relationship here and there because Kara said that she got over Mon-el, or it still hurts, but she technically got over Mon-el in this episode. And also, you saw at the end, Kara and Brainiac 5 had this little thing, so I think it's very possible that they can develop a relationship. But getting back to the Legion of Superheroes, their costumes, I thought when it was released, when the poster for Mon-el's costume was released, I thought it looked fine, but that was because it was like highlighted a lot, and you saw the outline of the Supergirl logo. But in the promotional photos and in the trailers, all the costumes look pretty lame. It's not Brainiac 5's because he doesn't really need a costume, he never had one. But Mon-el and Saturn Girl's costume were so toned down in color that Mon-el's costume was black when it could be red and blue, and Saturn Girl's costume was mostly black, but it had this little thing of purple when it should be more purple than black. Her costume isn't purple in the comics. It's actually red and white or pink and white, but they could have added more color to this costume. They could have made their own new costume that's purple. Instead, they made it black with some purple in it. So I thought that it looked pretty light on the color, and it looked pretty lame in the promotional photos for this episode. And seeing it in action, it looks even worse. Seeing the Legion in action, they don't feel like this powerful superhero team. They feel like a bunch of agents on a mission or something like that, which is fine. They could have their own take on it, but it doesn't feel right. It would be so much better if they actually had costumes. Like Brainiac 5 can get away with not having a costume, but Saturn Girl and Mon-el need a more colorful costume. But speaking of agents on a mission, the Legion's mission was revealed in this episode, and their mission was to save the planet Winath from the Blight. Now, both the Blight and Winath are DC Comics things. Winath is a planet where Lightning Lad and Lightning Lass are from. Lightning Lad and Lightning Lass Lightning Lass was mentioned in this episode. Isla being from Winath. She's a member. They're both members of the Legion of Superheroes, and Isla is Lightning Lass. Isla Rands and her brother Garth Rands are Lightning Lass and Lightning Lad, respectively. So it's pretty cool that they mentioned them here, and they have this whole thing about them. And the Blight are creatures that consume worlds. That's all I can find about them. They didn't really appear much, so it looks like they actually dug pretty deep to find this alien race called the Blight. So the fact that their mission was revealed here is pretty cool. I always expected their actual mission to help Supergirl defeat Rain. I thought that they would come here and lie about their mission and say that they got here by mistake and their real mission was to help Supergirl and Rain, but it turns out they actually revealed their mission, which is pretty cool. Now the mission itself was they put something in their DNA, and then it's really convoluted. So they found a way to defeat the Blight, and it was destroyed or something, so they put it in their DNA and then went back in time and then tried to get back to the future. It's something like that. It's really convoluted, but their plan was revealed, which is pretty cool. Really, the biggest takeaway from this whole plan is that Lightning Lass and Lightning Lad exist in this universe in the future, which anyway we could have expected they did, but this confirms at least Lightning Lass. Just to sum up what I thought about the Legion of Superheroes, I thought Brainiac 5's debut was pretty great. Honestly, the way they introduced him into the show is great. Now, his makeup, however, his design isn't that great, but his character and debut were pretty well done. The costumes in action were pretty lame. They were even worse than they look in the promotional photos. Their mission, while being a little bit nothing that special, it's cool that they revealed it, and the Lightning Lass reference was pretty awesome. And then let's move on to Rain and the fact that she's enforcing justice. This is something that I did not expect to happen. I thought that Sam would pull against Rain and for control and use the power of Rain to stop criminals like the bank robbers. But it turns out that no, it's Rain wants to do this by herself, or that woman that Rain talks to wants her to do this, which is pretty cool, but I would have preferred it if it was the thing that I said. Firstly, because I predicted it, and second of all, it can lead to some pretty interesting storylines. Now, the fact that she's enforcing justice doesn't really make sense to me because I thought she's a world killer. I thought her main thing was that she kills worlds. But I don't really know what's happening yet, so I'll just have to wait to see and find out that. We learn at the end of the episode, however, that there's more Reigns, I guess. There are more world killers. I'm pretty sure that's what they said, which is something that I'm actually anticipating to see. Just imagine an army of Reigns. They do this every episode, every season of Supergirl. They have this alien invasion at the end, and maybe they're doing another one of the Rain, and then Superman. That would be awesome. Have all these Reigns versus Superman, Supergirl, Martian Manhunter, and the entire Legion of Superheroes. Not only the three members we've seen, also Lightning Lad and Lightning Lass and Cosmic Boy, and all the members. They just show up and fight all these Reigns, all these world killers, and then Rain obviously fights Supergirl as the main thing we see. That would be an awesome season finale. That might even be one of the best Arrowverse season finales ever if it's done right. Speaking of Superman, the fact that they didn't call Superman for help was never explained. They even mentioned that Clark threw away the kryptonite, but they never thought to call him, which doesn't make any sense. This is the first episode of the season that it made no sense that they didn't call Superman. In the Rain episode, it makes sense that they didn't call him because it was the middle of a fight. They weren't thinking about that. But it didn't make sense that Superman didn't show up because he must have seen that on the news and he could fly over there in a second. But in this episode, it makes no sense that Superman didn't show up. They could have explained it by just saying Superman's off-world or something, or Superman's dealing with his own thing, but they never explained it, which is kind of a bummer. The fact that Superman didn't show up is a bummer, but the fact that they didn't even mention it, they didn't even say why he didn't show up, why they didn't call him, it didn't make any sense in the universe that they've built with when Superman could just fly over to National City in 3 seconds. Kara obviously came out of the coma in this episode, which is, again, something that it's a tiny bit disappointing because it takes away from the value of the season, of the mid-season finale, because she was beaten to a pulp, to a bloody pulp. It's the same thing that they did in Arrow Season 3. He died and then came back to life the next episode. It would have been cool if she got beaten up and put into a coma and then woke up in episode 10 or 11 or 12, because it would have given more depth to the fact that she was beaten. But the way she got out of the coma was actually pretty cool. They have another DC reference in Streaky. I remember Streaky from the Crypto TV show that they had, and Streaky was one of the characters. So that was a cool reference. And the fact that she had to remember that she's Kara Danvers to get out of the coma was really cheesy, but it was actually pretty cool because that's what this season actually has building for. They've mentioned this a lot. And then we had the final fight at the end, which was a little underwhelming. We saw all these characters together, like the Legion working together. Was the fact that there were only 3 members of the Legion made them feel less like a big team and more like a couple of people fighting together, which isn't terrible in anything, but it wasn't. They didn't feel like a crazy big Legion of superheroes. But we did see Martian Manhunter show up. I said that if Martian Manhunter didn't team up with the Legion in this episode, I would have been mad. And technically he did, but he showed up for one episode, for one moment. He showed up, picked up Rain, and brought her through the ground, and picked her up again, and then we never saw him again until Supergirl already beat Rain, and he didn't show up till the end of the fight, which the whole fight was a little underwhelming to me. I loved the ship that Brainiac was in. I think the design for that looked really cool, and the way he used that in the fight was cool. But everything else, the way the costumes looked, the way that they fought, the first look at Saturn Girl's powers, although the force field was cool, her telekinesis was so slow that it was kind of lame. I just didn't like the whole fight. I think it was really too short, and we cut away way too much. When Supergirl showed up, they won immediately. It would have been so awesome if we saw this whole fight with Rain versus all 5 superheroes, but we didn't. We really saw her fight one superhero at a time, which again is pretty disappointing. In conclusion, I thought this episode was in most part actually really good, aside from Brainiac's clear bad design, Brainiac 5 and their costumes looking weird, and also the fact that they didn't call Superman and the final fight being a little disappointing. Everything else about this episode was actually really good and satisfying, which is why I give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. So let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.